So this website over here is called simbrief.com. I use it to create my flight plans for a flight simulator. All you have to do is enter the airline code. It's UAL for United Airlines, our flight number. Then our departure airport, that's KSFO for San Francisco. Our arrival airport, KIAD for Washington Dulles. And what this will do is it'll automatically generate the flight plan for us. Then we have to select our aircraft, 757-200 B752, that's the code for this aircraft. What it also does is it selects an alternate airport for us, in this case Pittsburgh, and that is in the event that we can't land at Washington Dulles and we would need to divert to Pittsburgh. And this is the flight plan that it just generated for us. What a flight plan consists of is a departure route from the origin airport, and that will take us from the runway at San Francisco all the way to our first waypoint on the flight plan, and then our flight plan will take us all the way across the United States to the area of our destination airport, and then an arrival route will bring us from our last waypoint on the flight plan to the runway at Washington Dulles International Airport. And this is how a flight plan is given to us, and also how it's entered into the flight management computer of the aircraft. So this over here is the departure route. Each departure route has a name. This is our arrival route. And these over here are all the waypoints and airways that we're going to have to follow along the way. So this thing over here is a waypoint name. This here is an airway. Airways are just virtual highways in the sky that are used by air traffic control to guide airplanes safely through the airspace system. So for example, we start at this waypoint over here. In the flight plan, it'll bring us to the Q. After that, we'll follow the Q128 airway to this waypoint over here. So for example, this line over here represents the Q126 airway. Here we are on the Q128 airway, and then we'll go direct to this next waypoint over here without following an airway. That's flight plans are sometimes made like that. Then another direct to this one, HBU, another direct to HGO. You can tell if it's direct or not, because if you don't see an airway between the waypoint names, then you're not actually following one. And then when we get to STL, which is St. Louis, we're going to follow the J134 airway to the FLM waypoint. Then we'll follow the J24 airway to HVQ. And then we'll follow our arrival route into Washington Dulles. So now that we have our... first of all, let me tell you something else. What SimBrief does is it chooses the departure and arrival runways that you're going to use based on the weather conditions at the airports. And airplanes, they always, almost always take off and land into the wind, and this reduces the amount of runway that needs to be used for takeoff and landing. So it's kind of nice that they have them selected for us. So now that we have our flight plan, we can go back to our aircraft and put it into the FMC. So here we are back at the FMC. The first thing we need to do is select the departure and arrival page. We have to select our departure route for San Francisco. And we have to select this one over here, as that's what was given to us in our flight plan. We'll be taking off from runway 28 right. We're going to go to the route page. Now we have to enter our waypoints and airways. Just getting my flight plan out again. So now I'm entering all the waypoints and airways. So now we have all our waypoints and airways. We can go to our arrivals page. We have to choose this arrival route. We're going to be taking runway 12. And then we can activate our route. And then we have to confirm this by hitting execute. So this is our route page. And then we have to go to the legs, which lists every single waypoint in order. Because when you enter waypoints in the route page, like for example, when you take the J134 airway to FLM, you'll be passing a couple waypoints along the J134 airway that we didn't directly enter over here, and these will show up in the legs page. And then our route will display on this screen over here that's called the navigation display. We need to zoom out a little bit to see the whole route, and then change our mode to plan. This will allow us to skip through the route. We have to make sure everything looks good. So over here, there's something called a route discontinuity, and that is when two waypoints are not connected to each other by a magenta line. And that sometimes happens in flight planning. And because this is very close to our destination, we don't need to take care of this immediately. But we'll take care of it once we get closer to our destination airport. It's Washington Dulles. So then we need to go back to our route page, go to the performance initialization. So now we have to enter weight information about the aircraft, like our zero fuel weight. Our zero fuel weight is the weight of the aircraft without any, if there were no fuel in the fuel tanks. And that is, this number will display here. So it's 128,000 pounds. It's 128.8 times 1,000. That's how the flight management computer displays numbers. Our gross weight is 185,800 pounds. That's the total weight of the aircraft, including the fuel. This is how many pounds of fuel we have on board. And we also want to take some reserve fuel with us. We'll take 12,000 pounds of reserve fuel. That should be enough for us to divert to a nearby airport. If we can't land at Washington Dulles, we have to input our cruising altitude, which is flight level 360, or about 36,000 feet. I'll explain to you the difference between feet and flight levels a little later. Now we have to enter our cost index, which is a number used by the flight management computer. It tells the computer how much it has to prioritize fuel economy or aircraft speed. Lower numbers will cause the aircraft to prioritize fuel economy, while higher numbers will cause it to prioritize speed. Today we'll be using a cost index of 85, which is pretty common for airlines around the world. And we have to select our cruise center of gravity over here. And we have to go to the takeoff page where we enter our takeoff information. We have to select how many degrees of flaps we want to use. Today we'll be using 5 degrees of flaps on takeoff. What the flaps are, they are devices on the wings that are used to increase the surface area of the wings and change the aerodynamic characteristics of them, and they allow the aircraft to stay in the air at lower speeds, and this is essential for taking off and landing. So we'll choose 5 degrees of flaps, and with that information the computer will calculate three critical speeds for us. The first one is V1, which is the maximum speed at which the pilots can safely abort the takeoff. If they were to abort the takeoff above that speed, they would risk overrunning the runway, so we'll approve that. VR, or rotate, is the speed at which the pilot will begin to pull up the aircraft nose. V2 is the minimum safe speed at which the aircraft can climb out safely on one engine if the other one were to fail during takeoff. And we have to select our center of gravity again, and this will display a trim number over here, which is 3.47. And that is the number that'll tell us how much we'll have to trim our horizontal stabilizer, which is, show you, that's this thing in the back of the airplane over here, and it can be angled differently. That's what the trimming the stabilizer puts it at a different angle, and this will make sure that the pilot does not have to pull back too hard on the yoke to pull the aircraft's nose up. So that's it for the flight management system and programming, putting the flight plan into the FMC. So I'll see you in the next video.